process though as well. I mean, you're learning as you go and you're developing new skills that are going to last you a lifetime, and who knows what happens if we all end up being furloughed for a period of time. You know, I think there might be an AMP certification around the corner there for you, buddy.
I'm working, I'm logging my hours. I've got AMP IAs that are in the area that, can track the hours that I'm doing as well. Of course, I'm a long ways away from having an AMP license, but a lot of AMPs would say this, Rob would probably say, an AMP is just a certificate. It's not a huge knowledge base. It's just a certificate. Just like a pilot's license is a license to learn, an AMP certificate is the same thing. So I'd love to front load myself with knowledge and then eventually get the certificate. The beauty of building this airplane myself with assistance is that with my name on the data plate, I'll be able to do all the maintenance to this airplane. So I'll never technically need an AMP or an IA to do any work on this airplane. I'll be able to do all of it.
Nice. Awesome. I did not know that. That's very cool because your name is the manufacturer.
Correct. Yeah, I'll have what's called a repairman certificate for the specific aircraft. So this tail number or this serial number of aircraft, I'll be able to do the conditional inspections, otherwise known as an annual inspection for the certified aircraft world. But even if I sell this airplane down the road to somebody else, I'm still the only one that's allowed to do a non-AMP licensed mechanic. I'll be the only one allowed to do a conditional inspection on this airplane.
Very cool. So do you mind, could you give us a little view of the airplane so far in the build?
Sure, yeah. So I'll just walk around, kind of give you a little walkthrough. Of course, it's very dirty. There's tools everywhere. And just the first thing always people say is, what are all these different colors? Why are you tie-dyeing your airplane? And this is all carbon fiber here. So the black stuff you see is carbon fiber. The whites or yellowish stuff you see is fiberglass. So when you're dealing with a composite aircraft, metal gets riveted together, and whatever the metal, however it sits, and that's how it's going to be. With composites, we can make it very, very smooth. So what we've got here is carbon fiber moving to layers of body filler. So this would either be micro, which is kind of a resin filled with ceramic beads, or all-fair, which is an epoxy-based. I hate to call it Bondo because it's much better than Bondo. It's epoxy-based, so it actually contracts and expands the same amount as carbon fiber, so you don't get cracks. So that's what that is. That's layers of bodywork that you put on and then you sand to make smooth. So this is just incredibly smooth transitions. Going to the most important part of the airplane, you got the horsepower part. This green tape is literally just protective so we don't scratch things when we're doing stuff. So this is a 310 horsepower Continental IO 550. This was a factory rebuilt by Continental, so it just got delivered about 2 weeks ago or a week ago from Alabama. Currently, we're working on getting the nose gear rails set in the correct position. I actually have weight off the nose wheel right now, so you can see the nose gear going up and down. So when the nose gear is going to go up, there's a mechanical connection that brings the nose gear doors with it. So along with all that work, we're fitting the engine cowling too. This is a dummy prop. You can see the propellers are very short. It's actually off of an aircraft that had a prop strike, so they cut them short, and you can use that to fit your cowling. So just kind of moving around. Inside the gear well, we've done a lot of work with hydraulic lines, sequence valves, and then actually painting the inside to make it look nicer and protect against hydraulic fluid. And you can see more of that body work, and created a baggage door. This is kind of a specific thing we did for this airplane. It's not standard. Instead of just having a window here, we did a lot of work to make a baggage door so you can get into the back a lot easier to put your bags and things like that. Once again, more just fiberglass and carbon fiber. Just dirty as heck, but all the structure that's going to eventually be covered with avionics, interior, all that kind of stuff. And we've got the tail over here, and we've got the plane on what's called a rotisserie. It's on a tail stand, and then in the front, the rotisserie, you can actually rotate the aircraft upside down. And some of the vlogging I've shown being able to do that, and it allows you to work on the bottom of the airplane when you've got it flipped upside down. So very, very cool to be able to do that, but it's it's a lot of work.
Okay. Will that aircraft be pressurized, or?
It will. No. The this aircraft won't be pressurized. It has on the canopy that you see behind me, there's actually going to be an inflatable seal that goes along the rim of the canopy. So that'll keep out a lot of noise and low frequency vibrations and noise. But no, not pressurized at all. I'll be able to go up. I'll have oxygen for this aircraft because I'll be able to go high enough.
20s?
I probably won't. I'll probably keep it in the mid to high teens. Unless the weather predicates me going higher or something like that.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. So are the specs on the aircraft going to be true to the original legacy specs for the?
Hopefully better. I mean, these kits were produced 20 years ago. This specific kit was made. Most of the parts were made in the Philippines, and I want to say it was September of 2000 that this kit was delivered. So this thing's been sitting here for 20 years. I mean, literally 20 years, and it hasn't been built. It went through the initial factory builder's course of 2 weeks where they kind of put the spar in, the wing, and some major important things that the Lancair factory wanted you to do in-house, so you couldn't screw them up. That was kind of the major deal. Like closing out the fuselage is actually two pieces, and it's bonded together in the middle, and you can see the line in the middle. That's actually where it's bonded together. So things like that are done in the initial factory build of 2 weeks. So the original owner of this kit did those 2 weeks, and then it sat for literally 20 years until I bought it this past April, I think, March or April. So
how much fabrication do you have to do yourself? I mean, it comes as a kit, so I'd imagine like the basic airframe and all that stuff is there, but like hydraulics and electrical, I mean, is that all part of the kit, or do you have to actually fabricate a lot of that stuff yourself?
So as the EAA would classify, it's not a what do they call it? A scratch build aircraft. It's a plans build airplane. So there's manuals that say, hey, this is where your hydraulic line should go. This is where your fuel line should be routed. And you stay true to most of that. But once again, this kit's 20 years old. Technology has changed drastically, and materials has changed drastically. And how they designed it 20 years ago isn't always the best. And new techniques have been found, better techniques. And so there's hundreds of examples where you look in the book, and the main guy here, Fred Hadlick, who owns AI Systems, and why I'm out here, he's got all this knowledge of 20 years of working with these airplanes. I'll be looking at a chapter and say, okay, well, I need to do this, this, and this. And he'll come over and say, no. That's not how we do it anymore. You want to do it like this. Because just the design has changed, or even after they made this airplane 20 years ago, there's been updates on how a structural piece should be set in. Or, for example, the nose gear over center link used to be 7 inches long. Well, they found out that it needed to be longer to help the system go over center more. So instead of 7 inches, it's now 7 inches and 1/8. And that just 1/8 inches makes a big difference in how the nose gear.
The rigging and all that stuff. For sure.
Exactly. And there's 3 different iterations of how they do the inner gear door actuator system and different springs, or the nose gear door actuator with the upstop. Those have all been updated because they realized as the years of this airplane flying, there were fail points. And so they had to re-engineer things to make it better. So that was definitely one thing I didn't really know when I bought this kit, that, hey, yeah, I've got a complete airplane kit, but 5 to 10% of the parts are no longer usable because they're outdated, and they've updated with, version 2 or version 3 type of things. Yeah.
And have you decided on what kind of cockpit or instrumentation you're going to put in there? Is it going to be the traditional 6-pack or?
Definitely glass. For modern avionics, it makes sense to go. I want this to be an IFR capable machine, and so it'll be a Garmin G3X system with 2 of the big screens. I'll have a Garmin G5 backup. So in the case I have an electrical failure, I'll have an electrical backup. There will be no vacuum system because no 6-pack, so no vacuum-driven instruments, but a fully IFR capable GPS, dual comm, ADS-B in and out, all that kind of stuff. I hate to call that the standard panel these days, but it kind of is for experimental builders. Resale value, it means a lot to have a glass panel. And I'd say if you're spending this much building an airplane, you might as well put the nicest gizmos in there. Not trying to break the bank, but this, I mean, the Lancair Legacy aircraft is a highly sought after airplane. You know, I've had countless friends or people, you know, that have just pinged me online through social media and say, hey, I've been lusting over that airplane for the last 15 years. It is so cool that you got your hands on one and you get to build it how you want.
Yeah. Have you guys decided on the final paint scheme yet?
Now, well, for now, it's actually, hopefully, the bodywork's going to be done sometime next week. All the bodywork, cowling, all that kind of stuff. And it's going to go to paint for primer. And it's going to live in primer gray. It's going to have 2 coats of primer gray, probably 6 months to a year. The thought is you want to just prime it because there's things are going to move, shift, trim. You know, I'm going to have to change things. So I don't want to spend a buttload of money on a really nice paint job and then have it crack or have to change something or do more body work. So yeah, just primer for now. But my wife and friends are avidly, you know, pinging me to say, oh, you should do this, you should do this. But I'll say, look up the color Porsche acid green. It's pretty bright, and that's my wife's vote. That's my wife's vote. So
wow,
yeah. Well,
stand out for sure.
You've been working on this aircraft now for, you know, quite some time. And the only reason you have all this time on your hands is because you've taken an opportunity here in the midst of all of this crisis that's going on and with the industry and everything. You were able to kind of parlay this into time off. What can you tell me about that and the decision that you made to take the LOAs and what was the process like to achieve those?
So when looking at this kit, I realized it was going to be a big project. Of course, you know, building an aircraft is no small undertaking. And with COVID starting to happen and quarantine and all these things, I kind of thought to myself, what better way to quarantine than to just lock myself in a hangar for a month and just work? I'm not going to contact with other people, all that kind of stuff. And so I decided when they offered a 1 month, 3 month, 6 month leave of absence, you know, the short-term leave of absence, I said, well, I'll dip my toes in the water and I'll do a 1 month leave of absence. And I had recurrent training that month anyway, so my pay was kind of preserved. So I decided, okay. And so I did that and I was able to enjoy an entire month off. My pay was impacted, but not, you know, an insane pay cut. And I realized, well, hey, if I've got no obligation to work, I can work on this airplane a lot more efficiently than having to stop every 2 or 3 days to go into work. So the next month I took another 1 month leave. I think that was June. And I came out to Oregon and I came out here for, I think, 2.5 weeks, maybe almost a month actually. And I realized I can work 7 days a week and, you know, uninterrupted days. I don't have to worry about, you know, crew scheduling or reserve or anything. I can just work. And so that worked out really well. And so that continued. They offered in July, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months. And I said, hey, let's dive into the water here. The water's warm. And so I bid for a 6 month leave and I was able to get it. So absolutely insane to say the last time I touched a 737 was in March, I think. And I'm not going to touch it until year 2021. It's crazy. But with, you know, the timing of purchasing this kit and, you know, being able to put this much time into it has been such a weird, random blessing in disguise. Of course, the world is in turmoil and all these crazy things are happening, but I've been able to utilize my time. You know, everybody, it's quarantine. They've learned a new skill. They've learned how to bake sourdough bread, you know, or all that kind of stuff. But I've managed to really utilize this time and get 4 years worth of work done in 4 months.